So Volume 9 for me is just, oh my god, it is the pinnacle of just hype. I just got into this and it blew my mind. Things pick off very quickly. Things just really evolve, just how deep and complex the dungeon is, how people think and how it ticks people, the way people treat monsters, and the fact it can really sort of confuse and shake a lot of people up when they find out that monsters in the dungeon have some form of intelligence, can talk, can interact on an intellectual level. And this volume just really took things in quite a big perspective. And as much as it isn't like a volume 8 where there's many different little stories itself, this volume is just one big story and it flows into the next volume and the one after that. And it's just, it's epic. I am so excited for season 3 to see these kind of scenes play out, particularly the fight scenes. They all aren't just one big fight scene. There are many sort of little fights, particularly at the end of this volume. There is a big fight scene that happens between, of course, Hestia's familiars, Bel and his gang, going up against a bunch of monsters. And at the start, you kind of think that, these monsters, they seem intelligent. They know how to use the terrain to their advantage. They know how to use lighting to their advantage. They have equipment that they've obviously taken from somewhere, stolen or been given. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. And it just really opens up this perspective of, what if monsters were just like them? And it just really got me so hyped to just see not just how Hestia dealt with it, how Bel deals with it. I mean, we all kind of know how Bel deals with things like this. He's instantly there to put out an open hand to try and help those in need. And one of the things that I really loved is just his perspective of how and why he's doing things in the way he is. He would rather make a mistake for the right reasons, because at the end of the day, as much as he doesn't want to put Hestia and the other familiars in danger, he still wants to do the right thing. And if monsters themselves, or Xenos as a particular powerful entity in the guild that runs it likes to call them, if they can show some form of compassion, some form of, wanting to live alongside other humans or other, intellectual entities, Bel wants to be there with open arms or with his hand out to shake their hand and welcome them alongside it. And yes, there are some really powerful and evil entities lurking in the shadows. I wouldn't say super powerful, but they are definitely powerful kind of in the shadows. And they know about these talking monsters. And they have some very horrible and disgusting plans for these talking monsters. And this is where it adds so many layers and so many different villains and good guys. And even some of the good people are going to have many different layers because, again, the people on the surface, they're humans. They're scared of these monsters. And at the same time, as much as I can be sympathetic that they're scared, they're paranoid that these monsters are going to turn on them, they're quite evil in the fact that even when something is helpless and weak, they still want to throw stones at it. They still want to banish it and say horrible things, as much as, again, sympathetic to the fact that these monsters are seen as fearful, evil entities and the horrific things that have gone between them, between building the actual tower itself on top of it and sealing everything. You can see that these monsters don't mean any harm. And this is where it really leads into these big multi sort of layer steps of Bel finding this particular young girl stuck in the dungeon, hurt, injured. He wants to help her. And at the start, I thought it was just basically a sort of like a sub race, like it was a race of talkable monsters, like it was just one race. Like at the start, it mentioned how she was like a dragon with wings and everything, and I thought, okay, obviously these dragons have some form of intellects, and they're basically their own sub race. They are able to talk, and only that race is able to do it. Until the end of the volume, you find out that it's not just one race, it's a chance for actual multiple races. It can be harpies, it can be dragons, it can be orcs. It's not just one race. Multiple of them can be born to have some form of intellects. And they all have their own dreams, aspirations, and way they sort of treat the environment around them. Some of them are very sort of hateful towards the surface dwellers that come down there and hurt them or try to kill them. But at the same time, some of them just want to go to the surface and feel the ray of the sun and just enjoy life and live side by side with these other adventurers. And there is so many complex components that are sort of intertwined in this, and I just absolutely love this volume because as much as I said before, it's just one big story and it's not many little stories, there's so many layers to the complexity of how this dungeon is just opened up more and more and more. There are many, many flaws, but there are many different hidden areas in these flaws that have not been discovered. Even by the previous 2 powerhouse familiar groups that got banished out by Loki and Freya, so many things are unknown. And just seeing it expand more and more and more, just, again, it's so much fun to read. And Hermes knows about this. He knows about the talking monsters. He knows about the fact that the guild itself is helping these Xenos. These sort of small ragtag team of Xenos, these talking individuals, or talking monsters going from floor to floor, hiding and sort of protecting themselves from hurtful and dangerous situations. Not just other monsters, but other adventurers that are coming down there to try and kill them without knowing that they're talking or intellectual. It just shows that the guild itself, I would say, guild unknowingly is helping, because 99.99% of the guild does not know about it, except basically 2 people, which is, of course, the god that runs the guild establishment itself, and of course our cloaked figure, which is an undead, basically skeleton kind of thing. He was a person that gained immortality by making the Philosopher's Stone, and then of course he kind of ended up doing a lot of bad things to himself because of trying to chase immortality. He works for the god that runs the guild establishment itself. So it's those 2 trying to help these Xenos sort of coexist in this dungeon, and of course the Xenos help this particular god do certain things, quell unrest, and of course it seems to be that monsters are a lot more dangerous than they realize, because these monsters have actually gotten a lot more out of control in the dungeon, but the Xenos have helped in the shadows sort of quell a lot of these issues going on in the dungeon. So it's ended up helping the surface dwellers. So it's many different layers of how they've been dealing with the dungeon itself. And so they're helping this particular god, and he's sending them gear, equipment, food, you name it, to try and assist them. And there was this kind of a bit of a rumor going around in the book itself about how there were these monsters going around stealing equipment. But they didn't actually steal equipment. Apparently, they left it there and then they bolted. So this particular orc was like, I'm going to keep it. See ya. It's just really fun just to see this story so much expand, and the fact that these 2 entities in the guild are helping it out. Now Hestia's familiars know about it, and essentially they are helping. Hermes knows about it. Ganesha as well, and that is one group that I did not actually expect to actually know about these talking intellectual monsters was Ganesha. And the whole incident in season 1 where it came to the sort of monster games that were going on in the arena and the training of them is all part of a plan to sort of establish this idea that monsters themselves can be seen as a lot more in a positive light. They can be tamed, they can be taught, they can interact, they can be kind. It's all done to change the mindset of those on the surface to not be so fearful of monsters. There is just so many little things that are kind of hidden in this story itself. But I mentioned before about bad entities hiding in the shadows, and that is a particular group of evil entities run by another god, and that familiar is trying to capture talking and intellectual monsters and sell them on the black market and use and manipulate them for their own gain. And this is something that Hermes has been trying to track and find out and trying to bring them down and remove them, because they've been a massive hurdle. And I can already tell that Volume 10 is going to be heavily focused on that, just by the fact that basically the volume ended with a massive sort of hint at what was to come. But it really shows that the surface dwellers play a major part in it, and I can obviously tell that there are going to be other familiars that aren't going to be impressed by this if they find out. Hestia, and finding out about all this stuff going on, and her approaching the god that's in charge of the guild himself, and finding out all these different big secrets. The fact that there is so much hidden unknown going on in the dungeon, and the guild, or the god running the guild, knows all these big components. And it is obvious as well that obviously they know that something's up about Belle's growth, because that is something else that was mentioned in this volume. They have some suspicions that Belle is gaining growth at a rapid rate, and they are questioning it more and more and more. But I think that now that Hestia and the familiars are working alongside, of course, the guild not fully knowing, but of course the god himself knowing, I think they'll be willing to let Belle kind of go a little bit more unnoticed and be able to gain his growth without being questioned too much. But I do think, depending on how quick he gains his next level up, it's going to throw things in a massive headspin. But there is just so much that goes on in this volume that really evolves around the Xenos, I just absolutely love it. The fight scenes were amazing. Meeting this lovely, cute, and adorable little dragon girl. She's just such a ball of precious light itself. And it was very interesting on how the anime itself portrayed her at the end of season 2. And then in the light novels, there is a bit of a difference, but I understand why the anime's done it in the way they have. I'm very interested to see where that goes. She is a ball of preciousness. You gotta cherish her and protect her from all harm's way, because she is just absolutely adorable, and I love her. And I love this volume, and I love what this volume tried to do, and I'm really excited to see where volume 10 goes, which I am really tempted to just absolutely binge read that as well and jump into it and skip over some other stuff that I was planning to do. But overall, I would love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. What are your thoughts about this volume? How hyped are you for season 3 of DanMachi coming out next year? I'll definitely be discussing more about season 3, more about season 2 and season 1, and just a lot more about DanMachi as a whole leading up to season 3 release. And definitely be keeping you all up to date if we get an official date of when season 3 is coming out. Of course, we know that when it's coming out in summer, but we don't know the exact date of when. But definitely would love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts about this volume? If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, and I'll see you, beautiful nerds, in the next video.